This rugged terrain would prove whether or not he was a pilot, for this was the eastern face of the mighty Sierras. This was where the hot desert air rose thousands of feet to form what airmen call the Sierra Wave. It was country to take a sailplaner far, if he was game for the risk. But risk was what a diamond sea demanded.
We have a slight delay, flat tire, and it's beginning to rain. How's it up there?
Up there, it was bad and getting worse, for Chris had lost radio contact. But there was hardly time for that now. Heavy turbulence had begun to buffet the tiny plane. Chris had his hands full just trying to keep it under control. Visibility zero, his bearings lost, Chris tried circling, seeking a way out.
Zulu, this is ground control. Can you hear us? Can you read us?
No answer, except the crackling of heavy static. No answer to Chris's dilemma either, except hope. And suddenly hope itself seemed lost. Altitude gone, visibility gone, situation deadly. Then, wonder of wonders, Chris saw a familiar form. It was his old friend, the condor, leading him to safer air and clearer skies. He knew that if he would stick with these masters, his battle would be won. He followed their every move and became, for the moment, a condor himself. Once in the clear, Chris could recognize his surroundings. Below, unmistakably, lay Mono Lake, and the sight of it cheered him, for he knew now that he'd traveled a legitimate Diamond Sea distance. Of course, there was still the problem of getting down safely, but he felt sure he could handle that. Good old Earth at last. Admittedly, it felt rather good to get his feet in the ground again. He knew where he was, and yet he didn't. From the surroundings, it could have been some other planet, one seemingly devoid of life. And that was his problem now. To verify his Diamond Sea achievement, he had to find a witness. Someone to say he'd actually landed here. A building. That suggested habitation of some sort. For every abandoned mine, there's usually an abandoned prospector to go with it. And this one had its old hermit, who was willing to sign an official-looking paper. Now the Diamond Sea was his. And now there remained one last little problem: how to get in touch with his friends. Chris was safe, all right, and he knew he was safe, but they didn't, and they would worry. The conquering hero returns, but what a letdown in his moment of triumph to come home like this. Actually, it had never been Chris's intention to come home like this. He remembered all the times Fred Harris had to come and bail him out of duck ponds and golf courses. And now he was determined to get back under his own power. The old miner couldn't guarantee anything, but if this ancient jalopy could get up to even 48 miles an hour, it just might put Chris back in the sky. At the Bishop Airport, meanwhile, Fred and Margaret kept the appointed rendezvous. They had almost given up hope, when out of the dusk, like a whispering wind, a shadowy sailplane floated gently to Earth. It was Chris, at last, home in triumph to receive their warmest congratulations. The Diamond Sea, soaring's finest, an emblem of pride and shared achievement. It belongs to those who dare and those who venture, to the young in heart and the bold of spirit, to those like Chris and Margaret, who carry man's dreams aloft and free his aspirations in the high, wide sky.
That's how a boy won the highest award in soaring, but not without some help from those real masters of the sky.